Miracle 21. An atheist receives God's touch. The office of this Jewish billionaire is truly impressive. The walls are lined with pictures of New York and Los Angeles skyscrapers and other massive commercial complexes. Architectural models of his vast projects sit in the lobby of this impressive penthouse suite in the fashionable Upper East Side of Manhattan. The stunner is that the man has built and owns these buildings in part or in full. We met through a filmmaking disaster that he helped fund and on which I served as a spiritual consultant. The movie bombed. He lost his investment, and I nearly lost him as a friend. The friendship, thankfully, survived. Over the years since we met, I have been engaging him in talk about faith, about establishing a personal relationship with God. He clearly likes my associate and me and welcomes us each time we're in New York. The spiritual stuff, however, seems to be of little interest to him. He indicated early in the friendship that he was an atheist. Probing over the years as to the source of his quote-unquote atheism, in quotes because I doubt his claim, I've seen little progress toward God or the world of belief. Once when I entered the room for a meeting, I asked, "Well, are you closer to God today than you were the last time we met?" He got a bit of a smirk on his face and said, "Well, I'm closer to dying." Well said for a man then in his late 80s. It was a sign of progress to me that at least he was recognizing the reality that he would meet his Maker on the other side of this life. I had few other encouraging responses. I kept praying for some way to get through the very strong resistance he had to anything religious. I learned that he was raised by a very angry, very authoritarian, and very orthodox Jewish grandfather, whose forced religion had turned him flat off about anything dealing with the world of faith. I understood, but kept telling him that he couldn't let those bad experiences keep him from exploring a personal relationship with God. He listened, but he didn't. Praying for some kind of breakthrough with my friend, I was cognizant that the former Jewish rabbi from the 1st century, the Apostle Paul, noted once in his New Testament letter to believers in Corinth that Jews demand miraculous signs, and Greeks look for wisdom. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 21 through 23. This had proven true in my experience. Nearly a third of those Jewish people I knew who had come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah and had experienced new birth had had a sign. It might have been an audible voice, a vision, a miraculous healing, a supernatural rescue, or some other manifestation of the divine. On this visit to my billionaire friend, I immediately noticed that he was limping and was hobbling around with a cane. What happened? I asked, knowing that even in his 80s he was fit and athletic and could outplay men half his age on the squash court. "I hurt my leg and they can't figure out what's wrong with it." He'd been this way for weeks. His frustration at not being able to exercise and the pain of the injury were clearly getting to him. Before we ended our conversation that day, I said, "Let me pray for God to heal your leg." He responded with skeptical resignation, but my associate and I prayed for him as we always did when we left him. I prayed for the total healing of his leg. Back in his office 6 months later, he had no cane. I remarked that he seemed to be walking and moving freely, and his response stunned me. "Your God healed my leg." Significant comment from a supposed atheist. We chatted more about his amazing recovery after our previous visit and prayer, and once again he said, "Your God healed my leg." He couldn't have been more correct in his analysis. I tried to point out that my God could be his God if he would place his faith in him. Sadly, he's still not there, but he knows 2 things by experience now. 1, there is a God, and 2, he heals supernaturally. That is a good starting point for building a relationship.